I, nice people here. John, do you want to say again what you were just saying while we were all focused on
No,
getting
I'm
that
just
off the screen?
would again like to thank Chen for his generous donation and to welcome everyone here tonight. And we're honored to have Lawrence Goldfeld this year as winner. And as I mentioned before, Nicole Verghese, who was the first winner, has joined us tonight as well. So very happy to have her here.
Thank you, Nicole, for coming. And thank you, John. Before we start, I just want to make sure, because we have had some trouble here. Does everyone have the accommodations that they need? Does everyone have access to the captions? And if you don't, if you could wave your hands, that would be a help. I think it's all fine. Let me just look. I don't see any hands up from people who seem to be having trouble. So, all right. As you probably heard, and John, you're still on the screen, so you need to. I'm seeing you on my screen as if you were the speaker. Can you turn your video off? Now we're just seeing Jay. We need David.
Catherine, look on the upper right and you might be in speaker view.
I am, but John's not the speaker. I am.
Are you in speaker view or gallery?
Speaker.
I was muted, so I was clearly not the speaker. So
Yeah, okay, well, I'll just stay in gallery view. Can everyone see all right? Oh, okay. Okay, we do want to get started then. So I just want to welcome so many people to our last meeting of the 2022-23 season. We've had a really wonderful season of presentations. And we will be meeting again starting in September, the third Tuesday of the month. We're already planning our chapter programs for next year, and I hope everybody will be able to attend. It's great to see somebody here, people for the our awards meeting. And Nicole, you're right at the bottom of my screen. Nicole Verghese was our winner last year, and she gave a wonderful speech. It's really nice to see you back here again. We'll post program information about next season's programs on our website, and all of you will also be receiving email blasts with reminders of it and a sign up for registering. Some of us are going to be attending the HLAA National Convention next week. I'm not sure who in this group, but I think 6 or 8 people from our chapter are going, maybe more. This year it's held in New Orleans. It's a little warm for New Orleans at this time of year, but I'm sure it'll be fun anyway. I would like to encourage people, especially if you're kind of new to HLAA, to think about going to convention next year. I think it's going to be in San Diego, but I'm not positive. It's a great way to meet people across the country with hearing loss, to really expand your, your acquaintance beyond the New York area. We've managed to bring a lot of people in, but it's also a good way to go out. So I would encourage you to think about that. I also want to remind people that our annual Walk for Hearing is on September 17th in Riverside Park. This is a joint endeavor with the national office. And we have a chapter team called Walk New York. Our chapter team right now does not have too many walkers on it. So I'd really like to encourage everyone to either sign up to be a member of the team. You do not actually have to come out and walk, but if you could help raise money as a member of the team, that would be great. If you don't really think that you want to do that, if you could contribute to the team, that would also be great. We a substantial portion of our operating funds come from our share of the Walk for Hearing. It's also, if you're around, it is a great event. It's wonderful to see. I mean, you should have several thousand people out. It's easy to get to, people from all over the New York metropolitan area. And I'd really encourage everybody to take part in person if you can. David Landsberger also, the past 2 years has done a live video cast from the walk, and I'm not sure if he'll do that again, but we'll definitely let you know if he is. So with that, I just want to move on to our meeting tonight. So this is always a very special chapter meeting for us, where we turn our attention to young people with hearing loss. In general, we are mostly well into adulthood, and one of the really great things every year is reading the applications for the Al Chen Award, reading what young people are thinking about their hearing loss. The application includes an essay, and it also includes some other things, but it's not need-based or grade-based. It's basic. Really, the most important factor is the essay and what the writer says about how he or she hopes to be able to give back to the hearing loss community. I want to thank Al Chen again for this. This is our third year. So Al, thank you very much. And he's going to say, actually, Al, do you want to say something right now?
Oh, sure. First of all, to me, actually, I want to thank HLAA, because, in all honesty, at HLAA has been such a tremendous impact to the hearing loss community. Giving back to the hearing loss community, at least for me, came from the HLAA, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I also wanted to say thank you to the scholarship committee who reviewed these applications, got these applications, and decided to be the winner. The scholarship is really to encourage the younger generation to give back sometime in the future, because it's about rewarding those who have been giving back or those who have the most potential to give back. And every year for 3 years, including with Nicole being our first winner, they've been selecting excellent candidates for this, and it just warmed my heart that we're going in this direction. So thank you very much to Catherine, John, and everyone else on the scholarship committee for making this happen. Appreciate it. And of course,
thank you very much. Okay, so this year's winner is Lawrence Goldfeld of Staten Island Technical High School, who will be attending the Macaulay Honors College of the College of Staten Island. I think I may have written college where I meant to say school. Macaulay Honors School of the College of Staten Island. I apologize. When we last asked, he was leaning towards a major in engineering science and a minor in biology. I don't know whether that's still his intention. We had a lot of applications this year, and a lot of good applications this year, but the decision to give the award to Lawrence was very easy, and it was also unanimous. In his essay on how he would give back to the hearing loss community, Lawrence sketched out a bold plan for a public social awareness campaign targeted to his peers using social media like YouTube, TikTok, Meta, and Instagram. And I hope he'll tell us a little bit more about his campaign. But first, I want to award Lawrence virtually with a certificate and a check, which I won't wave in front of the screen, but I will put the certificate up if anyone can see it. And I'm going to be mailing it to Lawrence tomorrow, and the check will be included in the same package. So congratulations, Lawrence. And would you like to tell us a few things about yourself and your plans?
Thank you, Catherine. First of all, I just want to thank everyone on the scholarship committee who selected me for this award. It's very prestigious, and I want to thank Albert Chen for making this scholarship possible. And I also just want to thank everyone who has supported me along the way. I turned 18 recently, and it's been quite a ride getting here. And without people in my life to support me, this certainly would not be possible. And as I sat down to write the essay, that was sort of one of the resounding ideas that I was thinking about, was that like without support of individuals, without people there to support me, like it would not be possible for me to get very far. And so when I was thinking about the social awareness campaign, I realized that the world, unfortunately, is not as accessible as it should be. That's not because people are necessarily per se malicious and want the world to be inaccessible. It's merely that they're unaware of the challenges that people like us face on a daily basis. And so my solution to that is to just disseminate more information via the internet and traditional media such as newspapers and radio as well, and just to inform people about the challenges of living with hearing loss in general. And I also drew inspiration from some content creators on the internet currently, Duo, who's very known on YouTube for bringing awareness to the struggles of everyday interactions, such as placing orders at a drive-through. And another creator on TikTok, her name is Lizzie T. Harris, where she just uses her platform to answer questions that people may have and just educate the public about our struggles. And it just resonated with me, and those are the roots for my social awareness campaign. And yeah, that was pretty much what I talked about in my essay.
Well, thank you. Actually, I want to look up all of those. Sign Duo. I forgot who it was who mentioned it today, but it was you. I was reading your essay over again. And you and Brittany, who is our featured speaker tonight, actually are both kind of thinking in the same way. Every year at this meeting, we try to have a young speaker who's very recently been through the same kind of experience that our scholarship winner is just entering, which is going into college with hearing loss. So I'm not going to say too much about Brittany because I think you've all read a lot about her in the announcement that went out. I do encourage you to go back and read it again. But she has just received her master's degree in design for social innovation from the School of Visual Arts. Brittany is going to tell us about the program she developed for her thesis, which is called Find Your Frequency. She has a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm sure people are going to want to ask questions afterward, maybe also questions to Lawrence. And Lawrence, we would also love to have you ask questions of Brittany if you have any. So in her thesis, Brittany explored how we might approach hearing health with more openness and acceptance. Drawing from research and from her own experience, she identified challenges that the deaf and hard of hearing face in identifying, accepting, and seeking assistance with hearing loss. As a young hard of hearing adult, she faced challenges in her journey, and that got her wondering what opportunities might exist to better support others with hearing loss, especially young people with hearing loss. And the result was her program, Find Your Frequency, which Brittany is now going to tell us about. I just want to say one other thing. Reading Lawrence's essay over this morning and reading Brittany's talk over this morning, I was really struck by how similar your goals and your ideas about how to achieve those goals of giving back to the community are. I think Brittany and Lawrence, maybe you could work together in the future. I mean, you seem to complement each other. So I'm going to turn this over to Brittany, and she has a PowerPoint presentation, and that's it. So Brittany, over to you.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to take a moment and share my screen, and I've just asked that if y'all could give me a quick little thumbs up to ensure that you can see my PowerPoint presentation. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. So I guess I'll get started. First of all, good evening, friends. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Catherine. I'm so thrilled at the opportunity to be able to share my thesis work with HLAA's wonderful community. As Catherine mentioned, I spent the last 2 years studying design for social innovation at SVA. And just for some context, I wanted to sort of explain social design to you all. And it can be difficult to define sometimes, and even more difficult to fully understand the scope of social design. But some core facets of my personal practice are involving community.
Brittany, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think you're going too fast because I missed most of what you just said. So could you go back a few lines and talk more slowly?
Sure.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I spent the last 2 years of my life studying design for social innovation at SVA. And social design can be difficult to define and even more difficult to fully understand its scope. But some of the core facets of my personal practice are involving community in the design process from the very beginning and honoring lived experience because they are the experts. Digging deep into complex social issues to really understand the core problem, and leveraging design to create communication frameworks and strategies that encourages a shift in perspective, which will eventually lead to social change. Or in other words, social design is about designing with people in a way that empowers them to build their own desired futures. So my thesis, Find Your Frequency, focused on the public and social issue of hearing health, which is something that I believe that this audience is fairly familiar with. As you know, hearing loss is one of the most prevalent conditions affecting Americans today. And deafness has often been defined by medical diagnoses and terms, but throughout my project, I discovered that these are not the only things that define how people access sound. Through my work, I've made a conscious decision to think of hearing and deafness more as a spectrum because everybody accesses sound and communication differently. So I'm making a decision here to explore more open and inclusive language around sound access and hearing health, with the goal of holding space for people like myself that are navigating the in-betweens of sound and communication access. So most folks might not be able to tell at first glance, but I identify as hard of hearing. I have a mild moderate hearing loss, and I use hearing aids in some settings to help me access sound. My mother, my closest and dearest friend, also wears hearing aids and has for many years, essentially my entire life. She began to notice a difference in her hearing levels in high school, beginning her hearing journey at a very young age. It was challenging for her and often isolating and straining on social relationships. And because of her experience, she was very proactive in getting my hearing tested every year. She hoped to get me the support I needed as soon as possible. And while this was wonderful, after learning of my own hearing loss just 5 short years ago, I was fitted with hearing aids and then essentially thrown to the wind. And I wasn't quite sure how to go about navigating all of these emotions that I was feeling, having learned that I would be experiencing the world a whole lot differently than I had grown accustomed to. I'm now 5 years into my journey, and I've only just begun in the past 2 years to embrace my hearing journey, to ask for help, and to wear my hearing aids more frequently. I'm learning to speak up more about my hearing needs with peers, and I've finally begun navigating my identity as a young, hard of hearing person. But it was really only after dedicating lots of time to serious self-reflection and noticing, seeking out resources and speaking to other folks with hearing loss that I began to really step into my identity. So of the 48 million Americans with a recorded hearing loss, there are approximately 15 million that don't seek any sort of assistance. And those that do typically wait an average of 7 years. So why is this important? Well, as you all may know, hearing loss may often lead folks to become more socially isolated. And because of this isolation, deaf and hard of hearing folks may be more likely to experience anxiety and depression. In addition to this, according to Johns Hopkins Medicine, there has also been an association discovered between hearing loss that goes untreated and a greater risk for cognitive decline later in life. This is because the longer a hearing loss goes unnoticed or untreated, the greater loss of sound discrimination skills or the ability to differentiate between and identify different sounds. In this case, especially if we don't use it, we lose it. So because of this, I wondered, why are folks waiting so long to seek assistance? And why did it take me so long to embrace my hearing loss? What are the internal and external barriers? And what can we do What tools and experiences can we create to help others like me to recognize and challenge these barriers? So I knew my own personal journey and experiences, but I wanted to learn more from other folks with hearing loss. Because although I am a stakeholder, I couldn't base my project off of my own biases and assumptions. In my research, I collected stories from 44 other people, some with hearing loss and some without. And the survey responses, coupled with several interviews, confirmed what is going on. Sorry. And so the survey responses, coupled with several interviews that I performed, confirmed that my personal experiences and challenges finding resources and community early on in my hearing journey were not uncommon among others with hearing loss, especially when they identified their hearing loss as a young adult later in life. So from my research, I've identified the following insights and opportunities. Teens and young adults in particular, for example, are an underserved group by existing organizations and resources. Although 1 in 5 teens have some degree of hearing loss, existing organizations still connect best with children and older adults. So because of this, there's an opportunity to really reach out and connect with this community of people in need, especially as they begin to learn more about taking control of their own health. Another insight is that people are rarely aware of emergent changes in their access to sound due to lack of testing and lack of reflection. Unless their physician is actively testing for hearing loss, which less than 16% do, it's difficult to pick up on a gradual change in hearing. So how can we expect people to seek support and community if they don't even know that they might benefit from it? So there's an opportunity here to design new tools that encourage more reflection. Current hearing assessment tools and language do often subscribe to a polarized medical model of disability, which sound access is really more of a spectrum. So it's not serving to that idea of sound access as a spectrum. There's a clear opportunity to design in a way that centers deafness and sound access as a spectrum, existing beyond just a clinical diagnosis and centering more holistic reflection around how we access sound. And our final insight, people don't really talk about hearing loss. Most Americans don't approach the topics of sound access or hearing health with openness, if at all. So there's a clear opportunity to hold really intentional space for conversation to foster a greater feeling of openness around hearing health and sound access. And so after identifying these insights and opportunities, I wondered, how might we empower young people in the United States to challenge barriers to sound access at early stages of their hearing journeys and beyond by fostering a greater sense of openness around hearing health? So I settled on a collection of goals for whatever the intervention might be. I wanted to design an experience that centered around sound that young people felt would be worthy of sharing with their peers. I wanted to design something that would showcase and celebrate lived experiences of folks with hearing loss and engage with young people, holding space for them to reflect on the role of sound in their lives. I wanted to design reflection tools and share them with the community that encouraged both introspection and open dialogue around sound access and hearing health. I wanted to demonstrate deafness, hearing, and access to sound as more of a spectrum through the use of inclusive language in a safe environment. And of course, I wanted to help jumpstart new hearing journeys for folks like myself. So after much consideration, I settled on a concept for an intervention, which became Find Your Frequency, which was a series of gatherings which I organized to facilitate open dialogue, reflection, and curiosity around hearing health and the role of sound in our lives. In testing the prototype, I hosted 2 digital gatherings and 1 in-person gathering. And in total, we had just over a dozen participants. The intended audience for this was young adults ages 17 to 35 with an interest in exploring the role of sound in their lives. But anyone with an interest in hearing health and sound access was welcome to participate. This was also supplemented by an online community called the Resonation. So what makes Find Your Frequency different? This particular intervention targets a demographic that is essentially unreachable or very difficult to reach by current efforts. It rejects the medical model and polarized definition of deafness in favor of the idea of sound access as a spectrum, creates a space for talking with rather than at community, one of the things I noticed in my research is that so often we give information to people without much conversation with them. And so I wanted to have it be more interactive. And Find Your Frequency also encourages more holistic reflection around sound access beyond just the medical definition of hearing loss. So in order to prepare for the event, I created this flyer, which I learned how to Rezo print, and I distributed it around my school's campus, online, and through my own personal, professional, and educational network. And at first I was really struggling to get some participants. So I ended up actually going and sitting in the library with some bags of candy and encouraged people to just come up and have a conversation. And I actually ended up getting a couple participants from this, which was really exciting. So for the digital gatherings, I leveraged free online tools like Figma and Google Meet that provided video conferencing, captions, and collective creation tools. I walked folks through a series of frameworks for trust building, discussion, and reflection. And through this, I found that groups of 5 to 6 were actually a really great size for small group discussion because every participant had a chance to share their perspective around each prompt in the time allotted. The digital gatherings I found were most successful in connecting people with an existing interest in hearing loss and helped them share their experiences and connect each other to resources. Then the in-person gathering was a curated experience with 4 different activities, which I created in SBA Library West, which was my school's library. By creating a space where young people already gather in the library, the intention was to meet them where they are. Activities included the conversation corner, a free hearing assessment station, a story gallery, and an end of experience reflection, which I'll walk you through momentarily, but they were placed along a circular path throughout the space to mirror a journey, although participants were welcome to interact with the stations in whichever order they prefer. So starting with the conversation corner, this was an open discussion that was guided by cards with prompts and questions that I had thoughtfully chosen for this particular experience. And the main goal was to hold space for conversation and connection between participants, regardless of their hearing ability, to encourage more openness around hearing health and just share more conversation around it. From there, participants could move to the hearing assessment station, which leveraged the existing tool for hearing assessment from the Center for Hearing and Communication. And the goal here was just to increase the number of hearing assessments completed and maybe encourage folks that maybe hadn't had their hearing assessed in a while to reflect on how they interact with sound and the rest of the hearing world. Many participants that did this portion shared that they felt as though they might want to explore their hearing levels a little bit more after interacting with this station. From there, participants could move to the story gallery, which was a wall of just stories that I had collected from folks that I had spoken to that just shared experiences related to sound access and hearing health. And the goal here was to increase awareness of hearing health experiences, encourage the sharing of more hearing health stories, and encourage more reflection again around hearing health and individual hearing levels. Some folks that were there also shared their own stories. For example, my friend there in the pink vest shared that she had had a moment where she lost her hearing momentarily and how she really didn't realize the importance of hearing and sound access until she didn't have it anymore. From there, folks were invited to participate in an end of experience reflection where we provided small little half exit slips asking, what will you take away from today? And this was a dual purpose here. One, to hold space for reflection around what they had just experienced at Find Your Frequency, but then it also helped me to collect feedback for evaluation of the intervention and the impact that it had on its participants. Looking back, I feel that the in-person event was particularly successful in creating a space that sparked curiosity and action among participants and allowed for new connections and conversations around hearing health and sound access. We actually had a couple people just sort of stumble into the event without knowing that it was going on and we had some really fruitful conversations, which was really encouraging. The end of experience reflections also confirmed that the in-person prototype succeeded in increasing awareness and increasing openness around hearing health. So looking forward, this work must continue. And I'm hoping to make sure that it does. I want to continue sharing this work with organizations such as HLAA, potentially partnering with them in the future. And I'd love for other folks to hopefully stumble upon my thesis online. I'd love to partner with HLAA and other organizations to bring this project to more communities of young people, because I believe that these conversations are so important. And I'm currently in conversations actually with my school's Disability Resources Center to talk about how this might fit into some programming for the fall. I hope to scale this work by maybe hosting gatherings in settings such as professional development programs or high schools and other higher education. And that process starts by reaching out to existing networks of organizations that are actively engaged with young people. And who knows, perhaps this framework has the potential to expand beyond hearing loss and help model how we might hold space to talk about disability in professional and educational spaces. And of course, this work will continue as I continue to explore what hearing health and sound access mean to me. I'm only 5 years into my journey, so there's so much more to navigate. And I'm hopeful that by having more conversations about hearing health, we can begin to shift the world in a direction that makes it more open and more welcoming. We can all do our part to give back to our hearing loss communities by speaking up, advocating for ourselves, and advocating for one another. And I truly believe that the biggest change starts with a conversation. Congratulations, Lawrence, on your award. I encourage you, as you're embarking on this new chapter, to talk about hearing health with your peers, with your family and your friends, to hold space for open discussions, because you might be surprised how receptive those around you are to being more mindful about your needs and others' needs and creating more accessible environments. But the first step for all of us is to embrace our hearing loss and our identity. Remember to make time for reflection on how you experience the world, how you show up, and how you communicate your needs. My biggest hope for you and for our generation is that we will have the courage to accept our whole selves and show up authentically in spaces that we have made more accessible together. My work and my practice is grounded in openness and connection. I hope that as you explore and as you grow, you will take care to find your core values and lead with them. You've got such a bright future ahead of you, and I wish you every happiness. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brittany. That was really wonderful. It's fascinating, and I hope we can figure out a way that we can help move this on too. I think it's very important to HLAA and to our chapter. And I'm really glad you were here to give this presentation. So I'm going to open this up to questions. Brittany, can you unshare your screen so we can see speakers? And okay, good. Thank you. All right. I'm just looking to see what's in the. Oh, I have a nice message here from last year's winner. Actually, Nicole was our first year's winner, Jonesy Strell, who says it was great to come back and see the amazing new winner. Thank you so much for continuing this amazing scholarship, and I'm so happy to return. Thank you, Jonesy. Really glad you're here, and thank you, Brittany. So, Lawrence, are there any questions you'd like to ask Brittany before we start?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just want to say that was an awesome presentation. I really enjoyed it. I like the branding and just like the whole appeal of find your frequency. I've never really seen anything like it before, and I feel like if I had something like that, like maybe in elementary school, middle school, or even high school, like it would have made such a difference. So I have a question for you. Like if I wanted to implement this like on my college campus, would you by any chance have like any resources that I could use, like maybe like a model or like some fact sheets or something like that that would help me put together an event like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I am happy to give all of my materials to you. My process book is available on my website for anybody to check it out. But yeah, if you're interested in implementing it, I'd be happy to either partner with you and help facilitate that, or I'm happy to send you the files of all the materials that I used and talk through how to facilitate a conversation.
That's great. Thank you. And also one more question. Is there any way that like I'd be able to read like your full thesis, because I'm really interested in getting to know more about like the whole process and like the 44 people that you're particularly interested in that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Let me actually grab the link to my website and I will put it in the chat for everyone.
Okay, Lawrence, do you have anything else you want to say, or Brittany? Should we move on to questions from the audience?
I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. John, your hand's up.
Yes, first of all, congratulations on your degree, Brittany, and there was a terrific presentation. I'd also like to thank you for the work you've already done for our chapter with our website and Facebook, which is very helpful to us. We don't have very many young people involved, and we don't have the skill set to really accomplish some of those things, and it's important that you have helped us, and hopefully you will attract more people. You've succeeded in college and graduate school despite the challenges. I know that having gone through graduate school myself with hearing loss, that there were problems that I faced in classes and other things. And I think, it might be useful for Lawrence if you could talk about, some of the specifics about how you met some of those challenges and things that he might do in school so that will help him. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your question. I actually didn't really notice my hearing loss until about sophomore year of undergrad. And so I had to sort of develop a practice of checking in with myself and seeing, if I needed to ask to sit closer to the front of the room. Now, I was very fortunate that I was given hearing aids pretty much at the beginning of that process. But I needed to sort of get comfortable using them, which I think can be very overwhelming at first. I was very lucky to have very small classes throughout undergrad and grad school, like no more than 24 people. But sometimes group discussions were very difficult. And for example, in graduate school, we had a lot of group discussion in an auditorium setting, which was very frustrating sometimes. And so I sort of had to, of course, ask for what I needed, but I wasn't really comfortable doing that until I had really stepped into I have a hearing loss. It affects the way that I interact in the space, and I just need to communicate what I need. So for example, when we would have small group discussions, I suggested, is it okay if we move into a space that is more conducive to small groups so that we can see each other's and lip read if that is something that we need to do? So I would say just take a moment to check in with yourself. And if you think that something might help you access the space better, it doesn't hurt to ask. That would be, I guess, my recommendation, because that's been pretty helpful.
Thank you, Brittany. David Landsberger has now joined us in real life. Hi, David.
Hi, I like that this is now considered real life, but that's okay. So Brittany, that was wonderful. What you didn't describe to us, what did you learn from this process? You told us about the great experiences and the eye-opening that your participants had, but there must have been things that you were surprised to learn and discover.
Yeah, I think the main thing that really surprised me is that people were really open to it. It just took that spark of conversation or holding the space for it. Like most of my participants, for example, in the in-person event, I was the only person that identified as hard of hearing or having a hearing loss, but everybody that attended and participated they showed up with so much openness and empathy. And that was really surprising and exciting because I feel like for so long, hearing loss was something that I didn't necessarily want to talk about because it was something that made me different. But being able to hold space for conversation and have people interested in the thing that made me different was nice. I think it definitely confirmed a lot of the challenges I had of like connecting with other people that, you know, experience hearing loss, because when I posted, for example, an announcement that I was speaking at this meeting, I had people from like high school reach out to me that were like, oh, I have hearing loss. Like, this is so great that you're doing it. And I think young people just think that it's not super common, but there are so many people that I know from my past and people that I've met recently that do experience it. So it was surprising to see that other people have experienced the same thing, and also really reassuring.
I think that's one of the things that people who are new to HLAA also find out. It's one of the sustaining parts of being part of a group that acknowledges and talks about hearing loss. Vanessa.
I'm actually going to read the question that came in on the Q&A from Steve in HLLA in Oregon. And it says, incredible presentation, Brittany. Way to go. Our HLLA chapter is located in the city that is the home for the University of Oregon. For other such similarly situated HLLA chapters, how, in your opinion, can we leverage the local university's communication disorders sciences to engage local younger people in this journey?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, I'm not certain if Steve will come on screen or maybe he will answer in the Q&A.
Okay, because I think my answer is sort of dependent on, is that group of folks, are they students that are studying that, or are they like a research organization with that university? And I'm sorry if I did not register fully.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I can respond to that. Thanks. So the University of Oregon has a communications disorder and sciences program where you can get
Okay.
degrees as, you know, audiologist and other practical, you know, practicing people in this space. Our chapter has not engaged with the university, and it seems like it's a ripe opportunity for us to be able to engage and leverage the work that they're doing and the students that are there. And so the question that I was really trying to understand is with the work that you did, what practical advice do you have for us that are and the rest of us that are seated, you know, where we have these universities that are you know, doing these studies, where we can really, you know, bring the younger people, the younger generations into this conversation. That's what I was going for. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the clarification. I do think that there is a very great opportunity to connect with that university and perhaps develop a partnership with them, where if these folks are studying audiology, for example, like one of my main challenges was, you know, I got hearing aids and then it was like, what else is there? So I think incorporating these practices with future audiologists and folks that are already interested in hearing health and encouraging them to have more holistic conversations with, you know, perhaps future patients or even their fellow peers, just to talk more about the importance of hearing health and the community that comes with hearing loss would be really awesome. I feel like I'm not articulating that well, but I do think there's a great opportunity for partnership there. And if you would like to talk more, I'm happy to share my materials with you and talk about how that might be facilitated.
David, do you want to say what it is that you just put into the chat in response to that?
Sure. Okay. I was just saying, I think I was just agreeing that I think there's potential here. Typically, the education you get in an audiology or a SLP, CSD type of program has very little interaction with the population they're trying to serve. especially from a personal or experiential perspective, as opposed to a clinical perspective. So I could imagine a program, workshop, function, event of this nature worked with that group might actually be a really successful, interesting idea. So I was just agreeing and nodding and smiling and cheering on the thought process.
Ruth?
Congratulations. That was an excellent presentation. My question to you is, how did you find HLAA, and what do you suggest that HLAA does to reach out to your community?
Good question. So part of my thesis was, after choosing a social issue, I needed to find a partner organization to really embed myself in community and immerse myself in community. And so I looked online for different organizations that provided resources and community for folks with hearing loss, and I found HLAA. I reached out to, I believe, Catherine and John, and I was like, hey, I'm interested in learning more. Can I help with your website? Can I help with your Facebook page? And I think that is one of the ways that we can connect more with young people, is to have more of a robust digital presence. But also, as I spoke about briefly before, possibly partnering with universities, with professional development programs, any sort of organization or company that already has an existing network of engaged young people, because they already have that connection and that relationship with them. So if we also have connection and relationship with them, they may be more open to talking about hearing loss and joining the community.
Thank you. I want to read a question from the chat now. It's from Jane Thompson. She says, has anyone found the statistics for known and also suspected hearing loss in the young adult ages, maybe 16 to 24 for some similar ages? I invited several teachers of this age group to join this meeting and found myself saying, you must have run into young adults with hearing loss, and I'm wondering how many that might be. I think we do know that from the NIDCD statistics that it's 1 in 5 teenagers up to the age of 20, I think. And then the next group that's studied is 20 to 30, slightly higher. But also from the same source is that far more than 50% of people with hearing loss develop their hearing loss before the age of 50. So a lot of those were teenagers. And of course, hearing deteriorates as they get older. So I think Jane's question is a very good one. It is a large group of people. And as Brittany says, they are hard to bring out, hard to get to acknowledge their hearing loss.
Because they often don't know they might benefit from it. That's why we need more testing and more reflection and more noticing.
Yeah. Arlene Romoff.
Hi, it's nice to be in the room with you all again. I was very impressed with your presentation, and my hearing history is very similar. I started losing my hearing in high school, college, but I got through when my first hearing aid was at age 22. So I kind of know where you're at. I'm in New Jersey and very active in HLAA in New Jersey. And I've encountered many people who are young, old, middle, and they all think somebody should, and we need to do this. And I would just like to give you some lived experience about access and advocacy and making change in the world. Don't forget all the work that has already been done. In New Jersey, we have also a scholarship program that engages people who are high school graduates and now college graduates. We have Montclair State, that's audiologist, Rutgers, that is taking on aging. And a lot of these overlap. So we lean on each other. And I've met advocates who think nobody's ever done anything before. And the reality is there's a wealth of work that has been done over the decades. And we are a community. I was young too, but now I'm old, okay? And there was a lot of learning in between. That, man, I see some smiling going on because yeah, so we are here for you. We are here to help you. We want to help you, all sorts of things. In New Jersey, we had one of our scholarship winners has come back. She went into teaching with disability access, including hearing loss, and is now one of our vice presidents. And so that is a goal that we just love to embrace. And the Walk for Hearing is one incredible place for everybody to get to know each other and network and decide where you might get your next idea or your next helper. So that is my advice, my words of wisdom, and I offer my own experience as well. I moved on to cochlear implants, wrote about my experiences, and have now taken on all sorts of advocacy, but everything that you would also want to build on, and I want you to. I don't want it to be just mine. So that's what I wanted to impart to you all. So thanks for giving me a few moments to say all that.
Thank you, Arlene. Lawrence had something to add to the Steve Brittany conversation. And Lawrence, do you want to just say it, or would you like me to read it from the chat, which is in very tiny print and it's hard for me to see?
I'll just summarize it, but basically what I was saying is that I believe that there is great potential in a partnership between graduating students and the hearing loss community at large. And so I would suggest a sort of like pre-professional networking program that would encourage future practitioners to get to know their intended communities that they intend to serve and just foster greater connections. And as for ways to get the graduating students involved, I would suggest some professional career benefits somehow, which I think would certainly attract the intended population.
Thank you. David, are you raising your hand again? And I think maybe it's to correct my statistics, which were not correct. Is that right?
No, I was raising my hands and no comment on your statistics at all.
Okay.
My statistics are something I cut and paste from a Lancet article. I have no idea what the best ones are. I had a quick question. Brittany, in the hearing screening, did you find any undiagnosed hearing loss? Were there any surprises?
I mean, without disclosing other folks' information.
Well, I'm not asking who.
Yeah. Yes. One of my friends did, well, two of my friends actually that participated noticed like, oh, I hadn't had my hearing tested in over 4 years. I'm noticing that it's not where I thought it was. And this is something that I'm going to explore more with an audiologist or take some time and like think if this is something that I want to explore more. But two people definitely noticed a difference in their hearing and were surprised by it.
Cool, interesting. It's that separately needs to be expanded.
Jane Thompson asked in the chat whether anyone is lobbying to get hearing tests into the New York City public schools. And this is actually an initiative that we've been working on for the past 2 or 3 years, John. is the leader in that. We have not gotten too far with that. Hearing testing is mandated in New York State public schools, but New York City is exempt from that. And John, if you're still here, is there any way that people who are attending this meeting could help with that?
Well, I just replied to Jane on the chat, but we've been working very hard at this for, since it's a little over a year and a half now, actually. And we've written to all kinds of, people in the city council and other governmental officials. Everybody agrees with us. It's important. Nobody is willing to actually do anything about it. And we're continuing to work on it. We're thinking about, legal ramifications of the lack of screening. And we would love to get, Jane, if you were a teacher in the schools with these students, I suggested you get in touch with me. We would love to get data from anywhere about students who are not being identified in school and what how their education may be affected by that. So if you, I would be happy to hear from you when I put my email in the address in the chat box for you. So we're continuing to work on it. And as I said, it's not been going well, although everybody agrees it's important and they should do it. I should mention that our Mayor Adams has been a very enthusiastic supporter of getting screening for dyslexia. He apparently is dyslexic himself and feels that the lack of screening and lack of identification impeded his education. And I believe he's gotten the city to now maybe institute screening for dyslexia. And that's an exact parallel to what we're talking about with the hearing loss and not testing for hearing loss. Although I don't have data, I'm really reasonably sure there are more kids with hearing loss than with dyslexia. So anyway, that's where it is at the moment.
Thank you. Lawrence, did you want to say something to this point about screening in schools?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's anything I could do to help as a graduating senior of the New York City public school system. And also I just remember, like, in elementary school, we were forced to undergo like vision screening, like they would test our eyes. And like now that this conversation has come up, I find it weird that like the same is done for hearing. Like people go to their eye doctors all the time, like get new prescriptions, but like the same can't be said for audiology, unfortunately. So this is a really great initiative and I would like to help out if I can.
It would be great to have you working with John. I think have an actual New York City public high school graduate on our team doing this. So I hope you guys can be in touch. And Vanessa.
Hi, Brittany. So now I'm actually asking my question versus elevating somebody else's. But first of all, I just want to thank you so much for being here. We just so appreciate your wisdom, and you're so incredibly inspiring. I can't imagine how different my journey would have been if I had met you while I was in college. I think my life would have taken a totally different, completely different approach. And also just congratulations on a fantastic graduate thesis and project and presentation. So my question though is, I'm curious, as you interacted throughout this process, did you find what was the most surprising response or thing that you discovered in both either yourself or in working with people throughout this process? That was number one. Number two is, which you can answer first, is were you the first hearing loss related graduate thesis at SVA? I'm guessing you were.
Yes, thank you so much for your kind words, Vanessa, and for your questions. I believe I was the first hearing related or hearing loss related thesis for my particular program. I think they had one like audio tour project for like museums in a year past, which was cool. But this was the first one that really addressed hearing loss and supports for folks with that. I think what was surprising to me is initially I started out my thesis exploration being like, there's not enough support for people with hearing loss. But then digging in more and like connecting with HLAA and learning more about all of the different like assistive technologies out there and all of the different online communities, it was really surprising that there's so much already here. It's just a matter of connecting people to the resources. In my process paper, I think of it as like the hearing loss community is almost like a secret garden, where if you know where you're going, you can find it, and it's beautiful and people are blooming and it's nurturing. But if you're new to it and you don't know that it's there, how do you find it? And that was really surprising to me, where it shifted from what supports can we create to how can we create more of a path for people that are new on their journey to the amazing supports that are already here and the amazing work that's already being done.
Oh, Catherine, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I am. I was just saying that was a wonderful answer. Vanessa, did you want to follow up with that? Okay. Alice Locke has your hand up.
Hello, everybody. I am more active in the New Jersey HLAA chapters. So I'm just was joined because I was extremely intrigued with having a young person giving a presentation, because in our chapter, we have a very difficult time and kind of given up trying to attract young people. And I do know that different age groups have different issues regarding hearing loss. So I can understand very much, you know, the social aspect and not wanting to spend time with old or middle-aged people and so forth. However, and that is okay. I mean, that's okay. And, you know, when you do outreach in universities and so forth, it's going to be mostly young people. But I also think that there's a lot that we can share between age groups. And I wish there were just a few more opportunities, or I'm looking for opportunities where sometimes the different age groups can spend time together and share and learn and do all these things. As Arlene says, most of us, have a wealth of experience that we can be sharing with the younger people, but there's also the other way. I really very much got the enthusiasm and the very positive, spirit from the young people. So we need that as well. But the thing that comes to mind often for me is for the young people is I want to warn them about, so many things that you don't know that causes hearing loss. And so there's that. So anyway, I just wanted to share.
Thank you, Alice. In our chapter, we talk all the time about how to bring younger people with hearing loss in, and also people from wider communities than we've been able to interact with. And I mean, this is one of these achieving more diversity in terms of age and race and ethnicity and neighborhood and income is something that is very important to our chapter. We're in New York City, which is a big, diverse city. So, anything you can share about that, it would be very helpful to us too. And our awards meeting is always in June. This was our third, as I said, or maybe it was our fourth. I might have made a mistake. And we think it's very important to have a young speaker. So, and our young speakers have been fantastic. So it's just a really rewarding experience. And I hope that everybody who's here will come back next year. Are there any other hands raised? We have time for a few more questions, or we can we can move on. This is usually a shorter meeting than this, so there's a lot to discuss here. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well then, Lawrence, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that as a young person who lives in New York City, I didn't actually know about HLAA until my hearing teacher in school recommended that like I apply to their scholarship, to your scholarship. And I just want to say that I think like the hearing teachers and like the DOE public schools have like a network that like goes all the way to Central or something like that, and that they all work in conjunction with each other and like send information to each other. So I do believe that if HLAA were to like get in contact directly with them, it would be able to like attract more like younger people to like these monthly meetings. I myself plan on attending these because I didn't really know that they existed, but now that I do plan on showing up every now and again.
Well, that's great. Thanks to Al and his scholarship, we are in touch with hearing services in the New York City public school system. And we had a lot of applications this year. Every year it's grown. So I think word is getting out. We're trying to figure out, we had some imbalances. We had a lot of applicants from Staten Island, for instance, and we, I think, had either no or just one applicant from Manhattan. So, you know, we need to reach out as a chapter to hearing services in Manhattan. We had applications from all the other boroughs. And if you have, you know, any further suggestions about how we can get to students, if not through hearing services, through in another way, you know, it would be great to hear that. So I'm gonna close this meeting. John, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I did. As you've mentioned a couple of times, we had some extremely well qualified applicants for the scholarship. And in spite of that, it was a unanimous decision that we chose Lawrence. And Lawrence, from hearing your responses tonight, it's clear we made a very good choice. And congratulations and good luck in college, and please stay in touch.
Thank you.
And I hope you are able to attend our meetings next year. You're on mailing list now, so we try not to send out more emails than necessary. We try to really keep them to chapter business, and most of our chapter business is about our chapter meetings monthly on the third Tuesday of the month. So I want to just conclude here. I want to thank Al Chen once again for making all this possible. Al, it's really, you have really created something wonderful here, and I really appreciate it. I want to thank Brittany for a fantastic presentation. I think we all learned a lot, and I think, you know, the chapter, we will find a way to work with you. Brittany and I have worked together a lot on more practical things like the website, which is really fun to work with. And I hope that, you know, there's a way we can maybe get the national organization interested in Find Your Frequency and in helping to facilitate reaching out to other areas. And I want to add my congratulations to you, Lawrence, and best wishes for a really great college experience. And thank you. Thank you for such a terrific submission. So I am going to say goodbye, and I think we're going to sign off from this meeting now. So thank you, everybody. It was a great meeting. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. This was really wonderful.
Thanks, David, for all your help. Okay.
Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Goodbye, Brittany.